I don't know that Doug Peterson could get Howie Roseman to do anything. I think Jim Schwartz got Howie Roseman to do a lot during his time here in Philadelphia. So if you're going to say, well, he never had that kind of talent, well, that would be on Jim Schwartz, because I think he advised Howie Roseman how to acquire or not acquire talent for his defense.
Well, we can go a couple. I will say this: he had autonomy, complete autonomy on the defensive side of the football as it regarded game plan, scheming, things like that. In free agency, he pushed for guys like Zach Brown and Stephen Tulloch that didn't work out. His guys. The draft, no way. Howie controls the draft. He doesn't listen to anybody. Hopefully, he listens to Andy Weidel. So part of that is true. Part of it isn't true.
Across the JAKIB Media Network.
Coming down the home stretch on edition 4 of Birds 365, Jody McDonald, John McMullen, your Mac and Mac guys. Running out of time for this edition. We'll have another one for you tomorrow, which we assure you will be just as good as today's. One thing, Johnny Mac, we didn't get enough time to really jump in depth to, but I do want to touch base on it, probably because it did break yesterday when we were on there. At the very later stages of our show, you noticed that the report was out there that the much ballyhooed retirement of Jim Schwartz went by the boards. That he decided to stay in the National Football League as a senior defensive consultant for the Tennessee Titans. You got to go down to all the media availabilities when Schwartz was the defensive coordinator here. All in all, I thought he did a good job when he was here. Not outrageously great, not Buddy Ryan-like, not Bud Carson-like, but pretty darn good and solid. A lot of metrics say the Eagle defense during his tenure was pretty good. I have one thing about the Jim Schwartz era here in Philadelphia that annoyed me greatly. Let's see if you and I are on the same page with this. Is there anything that the Jim Schwartz era rubbed you the wrong way about while he was in charge of the defense here in town?
No, I love Jim Schwartz. I'm a Jim Schwartz guy. He's one of the smartest football people I've ever met. Look, I know he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. Very self-assured. I wrote about that on phillyvoice.com. It's going to be out today about what he was. I think he's every bit the defensive coordinator of those guys you mentioned. I think the era of football has changed. I think he's one of the best defensive coordinators. He's been around here. He's been around this league for 25 years, over 25 years. Bill Belichick got him started. Bill Belichick swears by him. Look, it's all about offense. This is not Buddy Ryan's era. This is not Buddy Carson's era. You aren't allowed to do what you did back then in defensive football. So I always like, Jim's a bottom line guy. And he always says, forget about everything. How many points did we give up? Did we win the game? He had a top 10 defense from a scoring, from a points allowed average. This team never had top 10 defensive talent. And I can tell you, behind the scenes, Jody, a lot of the Eagles' mentality during the Jim Schwartz, Doug Peterson era was, Jim will figure it out. That's how much respect they had for him. But I will say this as well. He knew what was coming. He said he was going to contemplate retirement. He was never contemplating retirement. He knew what was coming because he's that guy. He was here for 25 years in the NFL for over 25 years. He understands the landscape.
Understood. And that's why he ended up in Tennessee. We'll see what kind of an influence he has there. I'll tell you what bothers me. You and I will have to spend 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour at some point in the future arguing Bud Carson, Jim Johnson, Jim Schwartz.
Great coordinators, different era of football. It's got to be graded differently.
Great, pretty darn good. That would be the way I would rate them. Knowing that their errors are different, there's different ways to judge them. The way I judge them, very good, great, pretty good. Carson into Johnson.
Well,
into
as
Schwartz.
defensive coordinators, I would say great. I think they're all great, but I think he's in that conversation as one of the best defensive minds of his generation. That to me is great. And if Bill Belichick swears by it, all right, I'm checking the box.
Yeah, Bill Belichick also swore by some of his assistants who have gone on to accomplish not a whole hell of a lot after they left.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But
so, Bill doesn't get to decide for me how great a coach is around the National Football League. I got a head coach, and he's the greatest of all time, but his disciples have not all gone on to bigger and better things because Bill said so.
But a lot of them were great coordinators. Like I would tell you, Josh McDaniels is a great coordinator. I wouldn't let him coach my team for a million years as a head coach. I think a lot of his guys weren't good head coaches for the exact reason a lot of Andy Reid's guys are. And I mentioned this earlier in the week. Andy takes pride in that. Bill is like, I'm not going to give you the keys to the kingdom.
Fair enough. Here's the thing that bothered me about Schwartz. You made the point that they had a top 10 scoring defense, but they have never had top 10 talent. Well, one of the reasons they didn't have top 10 talent was because of Schwartz, because of the way he employed his defense. He had more pull as a coordinator in player personnel than maybe any other defensive coordinator in the league. He had the general manager's ear more so than the head coach did. And I'm sorry, that should not be the way that it is. And there's no point when a coordinator should be able to affect change with player personnel, drafts, signings, trades, as much as I believe he did as compared to the head coach. I don't know that Doug Peterson could get Howie Roseman to do anything. I think Jim Schwartz got Howie Roseman to do a lot during his time here in Philadelphia. So if you're going to say, well, he never had that kind of talent, well, that would be on Jim Schwartz, because I think he advised Howie Roseman how to acquire or not acquire talent for his defense.
Well, we can go a couple. I will say this. He had autonomy, complete autonomy on the defensive side of the football as it regarded game plan, scheming, things like that. In free agency, he pushed for guys like Zach Brown and Stephen Tulloch that didn't work out, his guys. The draft, no way. Howie controls the draft. He doesn't listen to anybody. Hopefully he listens to Andy Weidel. So part of that is true. Part of it isn't true. But the fact of, Zach Berman mentioned, getting all this youth on the coaching staff was a plan by the Eagles. That's part of the plan. They said, Jim Schwartz liked playing veteran guys, relied on veteran guys. Maybe you can criticize him for not getting younger players on the field a little bit more quickly. I think that's fair. But I got to tell you, Jonathan Gannon, Godspeed. You're going to have some growing pains there. You ain't getting Jim Schwartz next year.
Despite me saying Schwartz is behind previous Eagle coordinators, I got to get a look at Mr. Gannon to figure if he can achieve a level as Jim Schwartz did. He was good. Jim Schwartz did a good job as the defensive coordinator of the Eagles.
And by the way,
not Jim Johnson or Bud Carson.
That's what I wrote on Philly Voice today, Jody. Bottom line guy in a bottom line business. And that's the bottom line. That's my Steve Austin for you. That's my WrestleMania preview. But I will say this. Buddy Ryan, Bud Carson, Jim Johnson, no Super Bowl. Super Bowl 52, Jim Schwartz. And he gave up 500 yards.
I was going to say, what was the final score of that Super Bowl again? Please remind me how good his defense was in the
But Jody, what is the biggest play in Eagles history? And it's not the Philly special. It's Brandon Graham stripping Tom Brady at the biggest moment on the biggest stage. All you got to do is win the game. His defense won the game.
That is the bottom line. And the bottom line is that we're out of time. Edition number 4 of Birds 365 in the books. We'll be back with edition 5 tomorrow. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. You can go back and catch bits and pieces, the edited portions of Birds 365, both on the JAKIB's Media channel and on PhillyVoice.com. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Be back with us tomorrow right here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.